take one. We can nail on take one. I think we're set. G'day, I'm Average Dom Slim. I hope you're doing really well. I hope the sun is shining and there's happiness in your heart. Today, I wanted to provide some insight into one of my experiences running a marathon. And I wanted to take you through the mistakes I made in training for the marathon and on race day. Now let me take you back for a second. So it's May 2019 and we've just moved to Berlin. This is our building, this is our apartment, this is us, me, my girlfriend, my sister. We decide out of the blue that we should do the Berlin Marathon. We'll be living in the city, it's a huge event, what a thing to be a part of. And then we look it up and realize, oh, it's pretty much impossible to get into the Berlin Marathon in the same year without a qualifying time. So next best thing, I know you're already thinking it, yeah, we do the Frankfurt Marathon. Home of the sausage, city of 1,000 lights or 1,000,000 lights or 1,000 bridges or 1,000 sausages or something. Anyway, 42.2 kilometers, October 2019. They gave us 6 months to prep. Let's do it. I was heckin' in. Ro was heckin' in too, but my sister, she was decisively out. So fast forward 6 months, and I've just finished the hardest 3 hours and a half of running of my entire life. I really thought I just might die. Now, 3 hours, 33 minutes and 25 seconds is not a bad time for a first marathon. It's not a bad time for a second marathon or any marathon. In fact, running a marathon, I think, is a feat in itself. Considering that I was running 19 minutes for 5Ks, the maths and the calculators, and the experts tell me that I should have been running about a 3-hour marathon. But it's not just about the time, it's also about how I felt, which was terrible. So what went wrong? What did I do that I shouldn't have? Or what didn't I do that I should have? And what could I do better next time? Hence this video. So this is how not to train for and race a marathon. Or as Borat would put it, how to train for marathon. Mistake number one, I'm calling low mileage, even though I'm talking about kilometers. I feel like I didn't run enough kilometers per week. Now there's ongoing debate about what the right amount of kilometers to run a week is training for a marathon. Is 70 to 80 kilometers a week enough? Is 100 to 120 kilometers a week enough? Is 1,000 to 1 trillion kilometers a week enough? I don't know, but I can tell you this, I was training 40 to 50 kilometers a week, and it just wasn't enough. This was my broad breakdown. I was doing 2 runs a week that were 8 to 10 kilometers. I call them my normal runs. I did 1 long run a week on a Saturday between 20 and 35 kilometers, it was all good. And then I did a 5-kilometer recovery run on a Sunday. So what this didn't do is it did not get me used to building up that cumulative load. It didn't get me used to running on tired legs. And it really didn't build up my aerobic fitness to a high enough level. This current marathon training block, I'm doing between 80 and 110 kilometers per week. Last week I did 109 kilometers, and I feel so much fitter this marathon training block. And I recover a lot quicker too. When I was in Berlin, I would do my long runs on a Saturday, and then I would come back home and I would lie in the bath in a catatonic state like this, just with the shower rushing over me, and then I would spend the rest of that day on the couch doing nothing. When I do my long runs on a Sunday now, I'll go out and I'll do 30 kilometers and I can recover a whole lot quicker. I'll go out for breakfast and then I will just spend the rest of the Sunday doing normal Sunday things, like going to the mechanic. So mistake 2, I'm calling no variety. Essentially in my training block, I only had my normal runs, my long runs, and my recovery runs. This was all I did. I didn't do any speed training. I didn't do any tempos, thresholds, intervals, fartlek, track work, any of that stuff. I didn't run up a single hill. Berlin is as flat as a pancake. In my training, I wasn't able to build up that strength in my running, and I also wasn't able to build up speed. So my body had no way of getting used to running faster for longer. The other thing is I did not run my long runs slower. I had no idea of a easy pace or a conversational pace. I would run about the same pace for my long runs as I did for my normal runs, as I did for my recovery runs. It made my long runs very, very tricky. So my current plan, as you may have seen through my other videos, is very varied. I try to make sure I have speed work, hills every week, and I like to have a variety of tempos, thresholds, track work, time trials like doing park runs. When I do my long runs, they're always at an easy pace. I calculate what I should be running my marathon at, and then I add a minute or so and able to make sure that that's at a conversational pace. I don't always like talking on my long runs, but that's a good test of if you're running the right pace for you. And I can tell in this marathon block that I'm already running much faster for much longer. And as I said, I'm recovering a whole lot quicker. Mistake number 3 was having no network and training alone. Maybe I just wasn't aware of the resources and the people that are out there. I didn't have a running group. I didn't have a running community. I didn't listen to running podcasts, read running blogs, watch running YouTube. Lame. So I was kind of completely isolated. Yes, my partner Rose, she was also training for a marathon and we would talk to each other. But there wasn't that network of resources. There wasn't that sharing of knowledge and experiences. This time around, I have a running group and they're fantastic. And I extract their knowledge and their experiences. Like, a mosquito sucks blood, it's delicious. So I try to get as much from them as possible. I chat to them constantly about their experiences running marathon, what they can share about running. That's gone really bright now. Also, having that running group for the long runs and other training sessions throughout the week is super helpful. They motivate you, they push you, there's a companionship. When I was running those long runs in Berlin, I was all by myself. 30 kilometers out there in Berlin. Now it's an awesome city and there's so much to see. But after 20 kilometers out there by yourself, 2 hours of running, it gets real boring. Okay, mistake number 4, let's talk about nutrition. I really had no clue in terms of nutrition. When I was in training, doing my long runs, I never used gels. I never ate anything on my runs. And in fact, I didn't even have a sip of water when I did my long runs. This is probably why they were so draining and so exhausting. I thought gels were meant for elite runners. I kind of thought they were a waste of money for non-elite amateur runners. Only this time do I realize how fundamental they are. You need that replenishment of electrolytes, carbohydrates, probably other sciencey things. When you're doing those long runs, you also definitely need water. And this leads straight into my first mistake on race day, which was nutrition. I didn't have a nutrition plan whatsoever. I didn't even bring gels. I just relied on the on-course nutrition. Now, in Frankfurt, what they decided for the on-course nutrition was that they would have bananas, little half bananas, peeled. That was helpful. And I tell you how easy it is to chew and swallow half a banana while you're doing a marathon without choking. And the answer is, it's nigh impossible. For water, I just relied on the cups and I had a lot of trouble swallowing those without choking. The other thing was timing of when I took in those snacks and drinks. Essentially, I waited in the race till I felt like my body really needed it. And this was probably after 20 kilometers, by which time it was way too late. I was already dying. This time I'll be way more ready for race day with my gels, with my water, with my half a banana. Mistake number 5, this is also on race day. I went out way too fast. Now, I get excited. I'm an excitable person. And particularly on race days, I got real revved up and ready to go. But in Frankfurt, I went out on that first 5 kilometers like I was on the track. So by 10 kilometers, I was puffing. By 20 kilometers, I was huffing. And by 30 kilometers, I was just out of it, right? And the last 12 kilometers was an absolute struggle. Now this time round, marathon, 4 weeks time, I can't guarantee that I won't be excited like a kid on Christmas. That's just what I'm like on race days. But I will be running with someone who's quite experienced from my running group. Hopefully they will help stabilize my pace so that I don't go out too fast. This is the other part of what I recommend, running with someone who knows what they're doing. That could be someone you find in the course, or it can be someone, that's part of your running group or a friend. That kind of camaraderie in the group will really help on race day, I think. I haven't done it yet. Mistake number 6 was not having the right gear and only having one pair of shoes, essentially. Now, before you say anything, I understand how this sounds, coming from the guy who pretty much only wears basketball singlets and cotton socks and an Apple Watch instead of a Garmin, right? But then I was worse, if you can imagine it, right? So I only had one pair of shoes and I just called them my running shoes. In fact, I thought it was kind of weird for anyone to have more than one pair of running shoes, right? So for my normal runs, I wore my running shoes, long runs, my running shoes, recovery runs, my running shoes. And then on race day, my running shoes. So throughout that whole training block and the race, I didn't even get them after, I just had that one pair of shoes. Now this time around, I know I'm not much better. I really only have 2 pairs of shoes on rotation. But during this training block, I've had another 2 pairs that have already expired or whatever you call it. And you can't, when you've done too many Ks of them, right? So it's 4 pairs, right? So not too bad. I still have my cotton socks. I still got my basketball singlets. But what I do recommend is that the different shoes are good at different things. I really simplified that. So for the race, I will be wearing my orange and blue Asics. Yes, they probably have a more fancy name. Meta Speed Sky FF Turbo. I just looked, okay? So they are really, really good shoes. They got that carbon plate in them, and I've worn them for all my races so far this year, and they have not let me down. They are sensational. Highly recommend. So that's kind of it. That's not all the mistakes I made, but it's kind of the main ones. It's the ones that I think will help you most. It's the ones that I wish I had known going into my first marathon, and that will be most helpful going into my next marathon. One thing to note is this is all speculative, I guess, because it actually hasn't been tried and tested in my next marathon, right? I could go out in 4 weeks and I could run 3 hours and 45 minutes and actually do worse this time around based on all the advice I just gave you. And then I'll have to release one of those YouTube videos. It's average Dom apologizes profusely. Anyway, look, I hope this video is at least a little bit helpful. I hope you heard something today that made you go, huh? And if it did, there's a lot more, where that came from. So why don't you consider subscribing if you want. I hope you go out there and run a marathon, and I hope you win against yourself, because that's all that matters. And I love you, and good night.